Every 66 seconds, another senior in America is diagnosed with dementia. That means by the time you've poured your morning coffee, dressed for the day, or read the headlines, dozens of men and women, many who felt perfectly fine yesterday, are suddenly facing a future clouded by memory loss, confusion, and fear. We are told this is the natural course of aging, that the brain simply weakens as the years pass, that nothing can be done but wait and hope. But what if that story is not entirely true? What if dementia isn't always a matter of age, but a matter of habit? Here lies the contradiction most people never hear. The decline that steals memory and independence doesn't always come from birthdays piling up. It can come from the very things you do each day without thinking. Habits so ordinary, so ingrained, that you never question them. The way you start your morning, the way you fuel your body, the way you spend your afternoons and evenings, they may be quietly reshaping your brain, draining clarity and speeding decline. And this isn't speculation. Research now shows that everyday choices repeated over months and years can alter the hippocampus, the memory center of your brain. They can shrink gray matter. They can blunt synapses. They can silence the very chemistry that keeps your thoughts sharp. Imagine living decades only to have your freedom stolen, not by time, but by the choices you made without knowing their cost. That is the frightening reality. And so here's the open loop you cannot afford to close too soon. We are about to count down the 9 most dangerous habits that silently damage your brain. Habits you likely see in your own life. Habits you may have excused as harmless. Habits that feel as ordinary as brushing your teeth or sitting down after dinner. Yet each of them holds the power to age your brain faster than your body, to rob you of focus, of memory, of the independence you've worked so hard to keep. Some are mild, chipping away at attention and recall little by little. Others are devastating, capable of triggering rapid decline in mere months. And the most dangerous of all is the one almost every senior carries out daily without a second thought. From number 9 all the way down to number 1, you'll see the hidden traps. And once you do, you'll never look at your routine the same way again. Because this countdown isn't about fear, it's about clarity, it's about control, and it's about saving the one thing no senior can afford to lose: the mind. Every 66 seconds, another senior is told the words no one ever wants to hear. It looks like dementia. By the end of today alone, more than 1,000 families will face that devastating moment. Some will try to explain away the symptoms, lost keys, forgotten names, confusion in familiar places, as just old age. Others will remember how their loved one once stood tall, clear-minded, independent, and now struggles to recall the simplest things. And the truth that few dare say aloud is this: dementia doesn't just steal memory. It steals identity. It strips away the ability to live on your own terms. It replaces confidence with dependence, clarity with fog, and warm family ties with heartbreaking distance. The stakes could not be higher, because the very essence of who you are, your stories, your voice, your relationships, hangs in the balance. But here's the cruel twist. What if the habits you thought were harmless, even healthy, were the silent killers creeping through your brain each day? It's not only genetics, not only the march of time. The way you hydrate, the way you sit, the way you eat, the way you spend your evenings, all of these daily choices are either sharpening your brain or dulling it. They are either reinforcing the connections between your neurons or eroding them. They are either protecting your independence or pushing you one step closer to losing it. Every sip, every bite, every idle hour counts. That's why the urgency is real. Because dementia is not something that suddenly appears overnight. It builds silently, habit by habit, until one day it shows its face. Think about what losing your independence would mean. No longer being able to drive yourself to the store. No longer being able to handle your finances, to cook your meals, to remember the names of the people who love you most. Imagine sitting across the table from your daughter and not recalling her birthday. Imagine hearing your grandson's voice and struggling to place it. The terror is not just in the forgetting, it is in the slow unraveling of self. And for most seniors, that fear outweighs the fear of physical illness. You can adapt to a cane, to slower steps, even to aching joints. But how do you adapt to losing the thread of who you are? And so we must see these habits for what they are. Not small quirks, not harmless routines, but silent brain killers. Each one chips away at the fabric of your memory. Each one eats at your ability to hold on to moments that matter. Each one is like rust working its way into steel, unseen until it is too late. At first, the cracks are small. Forgetting why you walked into a room, struggling to recall a phone number, losing a thought mid-sentence. But over time, the cracks widen. The routine you trusted begins to betray you. And if nothing changes, the person you have always been slips further and further from reach. This is the emotional anchor you must hold on to as we begin this countdown. Because it is not just about health, it is about dignity. It is about whether you can wake up each day and still live as yourself. It is about whether your family will remember you for the love and wisdom you gave them, or whether they will watch helplessly as pieces of you fade away. That is why this is not a list to entertain or amuse. This is a lifeline, a map showing you where the hidden dangers lie so that you can avoid them before they cost you everything. Every 66 seconds, another senior loses that chance. Another mind slips into the fog. But you do not have to be the next one. The habits you will hear about in this countdown can be changed. They can be replaced. And by doing so, you can strengthen your brain, protect your memories, and hold on to your independence for years longer than anyone tells you is possible. The urgency is real. The risk is real. And the decision to act is yours to make, starting now. I've lived long enough to see too many friends slip quietly into the fog. Men and women I laughed with, worked beside and prayed with, people who once carried themselves with such confidence, now staring blankly at faces they should know, searching for words that used to come so easily. I've sat in living rooms where the silence was louder than any conversation because the person in the chair had lost the thread of who they were. And every time I see it happen, I'm reminded that memory is not just about recall. Memory is the anchor of identity. When it unravels, so does the person. That's why I speak to you now, not just as someone older, but as someone who has witnessed what happens when these dangers are ignored. This isn't theory. This isn't something far away. It's real, it's close, and it's happening every hour of every day. Dementia is not some shadow that appears suddenly in old age. It is built, brick by brick, out of the small things we do without thinking. And I've seen with my own eyes how these habits carve their way into the brain long before a doctor ever delivers a diagnosis. Science has confirmed what I've watched unfold over decades. Research shows that everyday actions, habits so ordinary you wouldn't think twice about them, are powerful accelerators of decline. A diet heavy in processed foods and sugar doesn't just add weight to the body, it inflames the brain, literally shrinking the hippocampus, the center of memory. Hours spent sitting motionless don't just weaken the legs, they reduce blood flow to the brain, starving it of oxygen and nourishment. Poor sleep isn't just about fatigue. It disrupts the deep cycles that wash toxins from your brain each night, leaving harmful proteins to build up and damage neurons. Even isolation, those quiet days when you don't speak to anyone, has been shown to thin out gray matter, as if silence itself were eroding the brain's structure. I think of these things whenever I remember the neighbors and relatives who faded before their time. I remember one friend who always stayed up late, glued to the television, convincing himself it was harmless. But by his late 70s, his recall was slipping. The doctors spoke of plaques, tangles, and decline, but I couldn't help but wonder, how many of those years of broken sleep were bricks in the wall that eventually trapped him? And here's the truth many don't want to face. The brain is not invincible. It responds to the same pressures as the rest of the body. It can be nourished or it can be starved. It can be exercised or it can be neglected. It can be protected or it can be poisoned, sometimes by the very habits we carry out without thinking. And the tragedy is that most seniors believe the decline is automatic, inevitable. They say, "I'm just getting old, this is how it is." But that is not the whole story. Because research also shows that the brain is resilient. It can repair. It can grow new connections, even in old age. Scientists call it neuroplasticity. I call it hope. I have seen men and women who made small changes, walking each day, drinking more water, challenging themselves to learn something new, and watch their clarity return. Not perfectly, not overnight, but enough to make the difference between confusion and control, between dependence and dignity. So when I speak of these 9 habits, I do so with the weight of both experience and science. I do so with the calm urgency of someone who has seen too many loved ones lost and too many studies ignored. Each habit we will uncover in this countdown is a thread. On its own, it may not seem dangerous, but woven together, these threads form a rope that pulls the brain down faster than it should fall. And if you recognize even one of them in your daily life, I urge you, don't shrug it off, don't excuse it, don't say, "It's nothing." Because I have learned that in the long run, there is no such thing as nothing when it comes to the brain. Every choice leaves a mark. Every day adds or subtracts from the health of your mind. And the difference between slipping into fog at 70 or staying clear into 90 is often no more than the quiet daily habits you choose to carry or to cast aside. I've seen too many friends go the wrong way. I don't want you to be next. So listen closely as we begin this countdown. Because what's at stake here is not just memory, not just clarity, it is the very story of your life. And the good news is, you still hold the pen. Number 9, skipping breakfast. It may sound harmless, some people even call it healthy these days. But for seniors, skipping breakfast is not a harmless choice. It is a silent blow to the brain. When you wake, your brain has already gone hours without fuel. The glucose reserves that keep neurons firing are low. If you ignore breakfast, you're starving your brain at the very moment it needs energy to reboot, to organize memories, to focus for the day ahead. Science backs this up. Studies show that seniors who regularly skip breakfast have lower scores on memory and attention tests. The brain, deprived of steady glucose, struggles to form new memories, and concentration falters. Over time, the habit compounds. Mornings without fuel translate into years of diminished cognitive performance. I've seen it firsthand. A neighbor of mine used to brag that he never ate before noon. "Saves me time," he said, "and keeps my weight down." But what he didn't see was the confusion that began creeping into his mornings, the mistakes on his checkbook, the names that slipped his mind. Breakfast wasn't just a meal, it was brain protection, and he had denied himself of it for years. The solution is simple: never skip breakfast. And no, it doesn't have to be heavy. Even a small bowl of oats, a slice of whole grain toast with nut butter, or fruit with yogurt can stabilize blood sugar and feed your neurons. Want a bonus tip? Add a handful of berries. Blueberries, in particular, are packed with antioxidants that shield the brain from oxidative stress, the very process that accelerates dementia. Skipping breakfast is like beginning your day in the fog. Eating one is like turning on the lights. Number 8, poor hydration. Most seniors underestimate this one. A dry mouth, a bit of thirst, you shrug it off. But dehydration isn't just about comfort. It's about cognition. Your brain is made of nearly 75% water. Without enough hydration, neurons fire more slowly, blood flow to the brain decreases, and toxins that should be flushed out linger longer. Even mild dehydration has been shown to cause confusion, irritability, and memory lapses in older adults. Think about it this way. If water is the current that carries electricity, dehydration is like frayed wiring. Sparks fade, signals break down, and the whole system suffers. And here's the kicker. By the time you feel thirsty, you're already behind. Seniors lose the sense of thirst with age, which means the risk is greater, not smaller. Science is clear. Dehydration is linked to faster cognitive decline. One study found that elderly patients admitted to hospitals with dehydration were more likely to show symptoms of delirium, a temporary but frightening state of confusion. And those who remained chronically dehydrated faced higher risks of long-term memory impairment. The fix? Make hydration a ritual, not an afterthought. Aim for a glass of water upon waking, one before each meal and another in the evening. Herbal teas, soups, and water-rich fruits like oranges and cucumbers count too. And here's the surprising bonus. Staying hydrated doesn't just protect your brain, it protects your kidneys and heart, reducing strain across your entire body. A clear mind begins with a full glass. Number 7, lack of sunlight. This one catches most people by surprise. We spend so much time being told to avoid the sun, protect your skin, stay indoors, wear hats and sunscreen, that many seniors end up hiding from it completely. But sunlight is not an enemy. For your brain, it is essential. Sunlight triggers your body to produce vitamin D, a compound that acts more like a hormone than a vitamin. And here's what research reveals. Low vitamin D levels are directly linked to higher risks of dementia and Alzheimer's. Think about the role it plays. Vitamin D supports the growth of new neurons, regulates mood, and helps clear harmful proteins from the brain that would otherwise build up and choke communication between cells. Without sunlight, without vitamin D, those processes slow. The result? Fog, depression, and decline. I remember visiting a friend who spent nearly all his days indoors after retirement. He thought it was safer, less risk of skin damage, less effort. But over time, he grew lethargic, forgetful, and detached. His doctor found severe vitamin D deficiency. Within months of safe sunlight exposure and supplementation, his energy and clarity began to return. The solution is simple. Seek sunlight, but do it wisely. 10 to 15 minutes on your arms and face a few times a week can make all the difference. If mobility or weather prevents this, vitamin D supplements may be necessary, but consult your doctor first. And here's a surprising bonus tip. Pair vitamin D with magnesium. Magnesium helps activate it in your body, making the sun's gift even more powerful. These are the first steps of the countdown, the habits most seniors overlook. Skipping breakfast, ignoring hydration, hiding from sunlight, they may seem mild, even trivial. But each one is a chip in the foundation of your memory. Each one takes you closer to the fog. And if these small habits carry such heavy consequences, imagine what the next ones on the list will do. The silent brain killers are about to grow stronger, sharper, and far more dangerous. Stay with me, because number 6 is something you probably do every single day without ever realizing how deeply it wounds your mind. Number 6, sitting too long. At first, this may sound like nothing more than a lifestyle choice. A chair, a sofa, a favorite spot by the window. Sitting is comfort, rest, and for many seniors, routine. But science says otherwise. Sitting too long is not rest. It is slow poison for the brain. Whilst I'll sit for hours without movement, blood flow decreases. The brain receives less oxygen, less glucose, less of the nutrients it depends on to function. Neurons don't fire as strongly, circuits begin to dull, and over time that lack of circulation weakens the very regions of your brain responsible for memory and attention. A study from UCLA revealed that seniors who spent most of their day sitting had thinner regions of the brain linked to memory, even if they exercised occasionally. In other words, an hour-long walk in the morning cannot erase 10 hours of sitting afterward. The damage accumulates. Sitting too long starves your brain of movement, and movement is life. I've watched friends fall into this trap. Retirement becomes the quiet slide into the armchair, television humming, hours blending into one another. At first, it feels like rest, but then confusion creeps in, memory falters, and energy disappears. The chair that once offered comfort becomes a cage. The fix is not complicated. Break the stillness. Every 30 minutes, stand, stretch, or walk around the room. Even the smallest movements send a surge of oxygen-rich blood back to the brain. March in place, lift your heels, or take a trip down the hall. The key is rhythm, short bursts of movement woven into your day. And here's the bonus tip. Balance exercises like standing on one foot or walking heel to toe not only wake up your circulation, they also strengthen the pathways that protect you from falls, another silent threat to independence. Number 5, nightly alcohol. For many, a glass of wine or a sip of whiskey at the end of the day is a comfort, a ritual. Doctors even used to say a small drink was good for the heart. But here's the truth most seniors don't hear. Nightly alcohol is not harmless. It is a steady drip of damage to the brain. Alcohol is a neurotoxin. Even in small doses, it shrinks brain tissue, disrupts sleep cycles, and slows the communication between neurons. For older adults whose brains are already more vulnerable, this effect is magnified. Research shows that regular alcohol use, even at moderate levels, accelerates brain aging by years. The hippocampus, the memory center, shrinks faster in those who drink consistently. And because alcohol fragments sleep, it robs the brain of the nightly cleaning cycle that clears away toxic proteins. Night after night, the damage builds. I once knew a man who swore by his nightly glass of bourbon. "It helps me relax," he said. "I've earned it." But by his mid-70s, his memory was faltering. He repeated stories, forgot appointments, and lost track of conversations halfway through. The doctors blamed age-related decline, but those who knew his nightly ritual understood it was more than age. It was accumulation. The alternative? Swap the glass for herbal tea, sparkling water, or even tart cherry juice, which has compounds that promote deep sleep. Reserve alcohol for rare occasions, not nightly rituals. And here's the surprising bonus tip. Many seniors don't realize alcohol also interferes with medications, amplifying side effects that can mimic dementia. That nightly drink could be clouding your mind in more ways than one. Number 4, chronic multitasking. This one may sound modern, something younger generations struggle with, but seniors are not immune. Multitasking, watching television while scrolling through a phone, listening to the radio while trying to balance the checkbook, talking while cooking, feels efficient. But the truth is, the brain does not multitask. It switches. And every switch costs energy, focus, and memory. For older brains, that cost is steeper. Science shows that chronic multitasking weakens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and memory consolidation. Instead of encoding information deeply, the brain skims, leaving shallow imprints that are easily forgotten. Over time, this habit erodes the brain's ability to concentrate and retain. Seniors who multitask regularly report higher levels of distraction, forgetfulness, and fatigue. I remember sitting with a woman in her 70s who insisted on always having 3 things going at once: TV, crossword, and phone calls. She said it kept her sharp. But what I saw was the opposite. She lost track of conversations, misplaced clues in her puzzle, and couldn't recall the show she had just watched. Her brain wasn't being sharpened, it was being scattered. The solution is to embrace focus. Do one task at a time, fully, and give it your attention. Finish the crossword without the TV. Enjoy a conversation without glancing at the phone. Read without background noise. This practice doesn't slow you down. It strengthens your neural pathways, deepening memory and attention. And here's a bonus. Focused tasks reduce stress, which in turn lowers inflammation in the brain, protecting it further. These 3 habits, Sitting too long, nightly alcohol, and chronic multitasking strike deeper than the ones we began with. They don't just nibble at the edges of memory, they hollow out its foundation. And if left unchecked, they speed decline in ways most people never connect to their daily routine. But as powerful as they are nothing compared to what comes next. Because number 3 is the habit so common, so widespread, that nearly every senior does it daily without realizing its cost. And the science is chilling. It can shrink your memory center within months. Stay with me, because this one is the turning point in the countdown. Number 3, scrolling late at night. This one will come as a shock because it feels so harmless, so ordinary, so modern that few ever question it. Scrolling late at night, whether it's on a phone, a tablet, or even the endless channel surfing on television, seems like a way to unwind. You tell yourself you're catching up on the news, looking at family photos, or just passing time until sleep comes. But science says otherwise. That little glowing screen is not helping you sleep. It is quietly stealing your brain's ability to heal itself. Here's why. Your brain depends on deep restorative sleep to wash away toxins, to strengthen neural connections, and to file memories into long-term storage. Every night, during the deepest cycles of rest, your brain performs what scientists call glymphatic clearance. It's like a cleaning crew moving through the hallways, sweeping away waste proteins, including the very ones linked to Alzheimer's disease. But when you sit in front of a glowing screen before bed, you flood your eyes with blue light. That light tells your brain it's still daytime. Melatonin, the hormone that triggers sleep, is suppressed. The result? You fall asleep later, sleep less deeply, and miss out on the very cycles that keep your brain healthy. Over time, the impact is staggering. Studies show that chronic exposure to screens at night shrinks the hippocampus, the very center of memory in the brain. Mood declines as serotonin levels are disrupted. Focus falters the next day because the brain never fully recharged. And perhaps most alarming of all, nightly screen use has been linked to accelerated buildup of amyloid plaques, the sticky proteins that suffocate neurons and drive dementia forward. I've seen this in friends who swore their late-night scrolling kept them company. They thought it was harmless to look at old photos or play word games before sleep. But within a few years, I noticed the fog in their conversations. They lost the thread of stories. They repeated themselves. They looked tired, even after long nights in bed. The truth was simple. Their brains were never getting the chance to repair. The very habit they thought was harmless companionship was silent sabotage. Now picture it this way. Imagine your brain as a library. Each day, new books arrive, your experiences, your conversations, your thoughts. At night, librarians are supposed to put them on the shelves in order where you can find them later. But if you stare at screens late into the night, you don't give the librarians time. The books pile up on the floor, scattered and disorganized. In the morning, you can't find the ones you need. Memory slips, focus drifts, confusion creeps in. That's what late-night scrolling does to your brain. The solution is both simple and difficult. Cut off screens at least an hour before bed. Replace the glow of blue light with the soft calm of routine. Read a book under warm light, listen to soothing music, or write in a journal. Dim the room. Signal to your body that night has arrived. For those who struggle with the habit, there are even blue light filters and glasses, but nothing replaces simply turning devices off. And here's the bonus tip. If you crave connection before bed, try a phone call earlier in the evening. Human voices calm the nervous system in ways screens never can. This is why scrolling late at night earns the number 3 spot. It feels innocent, but its reach is devastating. It chips away at sleep, poisons the hippocampus, and clouds both mood and memory. And it does all this silently, night after night, until one day you wake up and realize the fog has settled in. But the countdown doesn't stop here. Because as damaging as this habit is, the next 2 are even more insidious. Number 2 will strike a chord so deep, you'll wonder how many years it has been hiding in your own life. And number 1, the most dangerous of all is not a single habit, but a combination that multiplies the risk until the brain can no longer keep up. Number 2, social isolation. This is the habit that cuts deeper than most realize because it's not about food or movement or even sleep. It's about silence. Too many seniors retreat into quiet days with little human contact, and they believe it's harmless. They tell themselves, "I don't want to bother anyone," or "I'm used to being alone." But social isolation is not just loneliness, it is brain starvation. The human brain is wired for connection. Every conversation you have, every story you tell, every laugh you share lights up neural circuits, strengthens pathways, and forces the hippocampus to exercise. Without this stimulation, those pathways weaken. Studies show that seniors who live in isolation face a 50% higher risk of dementia. Silence thins out gray matter. It shrinks the areas of the brain responsible for memory and language. It leaves the mind vulnerable to decline. I've watched this happen. A neighbor of mine used to host gatherings, always chatting and laughing. But after his wife passed, the house grew quiet. He stayed inside. He stopped calling friends. Within a few years, his memory began to slip. His family noticed confusion, missed dates, repeated questions. It wasn't just grief. It was the silence itself, carving into his brain. The solution is simple but vital. Speak daily. It doesn't matter if it's a phone call, a chat with a neighbor, or even greeting the cashier at the store. Words are exercise for the brain. They force recall, attention, and connection. And here's the surprising bonus tip. Singing counts too. Joining a group, even informally, to sing stimulates memory, language, and emotion all at once. The brain thrives on rhythm and social sound. Social isolation earns its place at number 2 because it is both deeply personal and devastatingly common. Too many seniors accept it as normal, but silence is not peace. It is erosion. And if you want to protect your mind, you must protect your connections. Number 1, the combo effect. Now we arrive at the most dangerous habit of all, and it isn't a single habit at all. It's the stacking, the combination. Because while skipping breakfast, sitting too long, or scrolling late at night are dangerous on their own, when they are combined, their effects multiply. The brain is assaulted from multiple directions at once, and it cannot keep up. Think of it like this. Poor sleep leaves toxic proteins in the brain. Add isolation, and you lose the stimulation that could help clear them. Add sitting all day, and blood flow decreases, starving neurons further. Add nightly alcohol, and now you're layering toxins on top of toxins. Add poor hydration, and the very medium your brain depends on, water, is missing. 1 habit injures, 2 habits wound, 5 habits destroy. Science confirms this grim picture. Studies show that seniors with multiple lifestyle risks, poor diet, inactivity, isolation, alcohol, face dramatically higher rates of dementia than those with only 1. In fact, the risk isn't doubled, it's multiplied. The habits feed each other, accelerate each other, until decline arrives years earlier than it should. I've seen it with my own eyes. A friend who sat all day, drank each night, and rarely spoke to anyone began showing signs of decline before 70. Doctors searched for a cause, but the truth was clear. It wasn't one habit. It was the storm of all of them together. His brain, resilient as it was, simply couldn't withstand the daily barrage. The warning here is simple. You cannot afford to shrug off even one habit, because it rarely stands alone. Neglect one, and others follow. Skip breakfast, and your energy drops, so you sit more, and you grow isolated, and you turn to screens or alcohol for comfort. Before long, the web is woven, and the damage is compounded. That's why number 1 is the combo effect. Because the true danger isn't in one habit, it's in the way they stack and suffocate the brain together. And that's why the message must be clear. One alone hurts. Together, they destroy. So as you reflect on this countdown, don't just ask, do I do this one? Ask, how many of these do I do together? Because the power to protect your brain is not in perfection, it's in breaking the cycle. Remove even one, and you weaken the chain. Remove more, and you give your mind the fighting chance it deserves. And that chance, once you realize what's at stake, is worth everything. I know this countdown has been heavy and perhaps unsettling. Habits you thought were harmless, sitting in your chair, sipping a drink, scrolling late at night, suddenly look like threats. But let me leave you with this truth, one I've witnessed more than once. The brain is resilient. Even in old age, it can grow, it can repair, it can surprise you. Change the habits and clarity returns. Break the cycle and the fog begins to lift. I think of my old friend Thomas. In his late 70s, he was slipping. He forgot names, lost track of days, and repeated himself. His family feared the worst, but when he began changing small things, walking each morning, drinking more water, putting the phone down at night, calling his sister every evening, something shifted. Within months, his sharpness improved. He laughed more, remembered more, and carried himself with a confidence that had been missing. No, he didn't become the man he was at 40. But he became himself again, present, aware, alive. And that, to me, is proof enough. So here's the lesson. It is never too late. The habits that hurt can be unlearned. The ones that heal can be chosen. Each day you wake is another chance to fight for your mind. Don't surrender it to silence, to screens, to stillness, or to routines that chip away at who you are. Choose the path that protects the stories, the laughter, the faces that make your life worth living. And now I turn to you. Don't keep this to yourself. Someone you love is already on this path. A neighbor, a friend, a sibling. They may already be slipping and they don't even know why. Share this with them. Let them see the dangers. Let them see the hope. Because the truth is simple. A mind can be saved by the choices of today. Don't ignore this. Don't wait. Don't stay silent. If one share, one conversation, one small change saves even one person's clarity, then the effort was worth it. Protect your mind. Protect the minds of those you love. Because memories are not just yours. They are the gift you leave behind. And they are worth fighting for.